So why can't we hunt kangaroos in Australia? And what are some of the good reasons to allow hunting of kangaroos? My name is Chris Waters, the Huntsman. Let's talk about it now.
Before we get started, I just want to quickly promote a website that I've built, huntingtrips.com.au. If you're looking for your next guided hunt, safari, or access to unique property to hunt on, this is where you're going to find it. Check it out. It's free to use.
Alright, so before we break down this topic and pull it apart and figure out why I think it's a good reason to hunt kangaroos and why currently most people don't, I ask you to respect the fact that this is a hot topic and there are people on both sides of the fence. Obviously, there's a lot of, pro-hunting kangaroo people out there, hunters maybe like yourself, like me, and there's also people who are kind of anti-hunting kangaroos. And I just ask that when you're putting your comments in the comment section below, just be kind and respectful towards everyone, no matter what their opinion is, because we're all here to learn and grow. Alright, so let's start by trying to understand why most people don't think it's okay to hunt kangaroos. I think the main reason for this is that people believe that the kangaroo is an iconic Australian animal. I mean, it's on our coat of arms, for heaven's sake, right next to the emu, which we're also not allowed to hunt. And I think that people see that hunting and killing kangaroos is associated with like an attack against Australia's identity, attack against Australia, thereby attack against Australians, and to hunt and kill something that is Australian is kind of like a bit of a jib. It's a bit of a poke at Australia, or it's somehow offensive to Australia. And I just find this is really interesting, and it just goes to show the power of symbolism, that you take an animal that's just a regular animal, just like any other animal. It just so happens to be on our continent and not anywhere else, which is why we identify it as being an iconic Australian animal. But it becomes iconic, it becomes a symbol, and it gains power. And then all of a sudden people treat it very, very, very differently. And people become opposed to hunting it because it's on our coins, it's on our currency, and it's on our coat of arms. And I don't think that's a good enough reason not to hunt something. In fact, I would argue the hunting of an iconic and Australian animal is a matter of pride for Australians. It's like, it's our animal, it's our resource. We have mastery over it. No one else does. Therefore, it's a beautiful relationship between the Australian hunter and that iconic animal, not so much an issue and a reason not to hunt it. So another reason I believe that most people think it's not okay to hunt kangaroos is because the kangaroo is a fairly passive animal. Like, it's a herd animal. It moves around in herds for safety. It's a grazing animal. You find it out there in the pastures. It's not a carnivore, and it doesn't really have any predators, so it's not a super aggressive animal either. And people see the hunting of passive animals as kind of an ugly thing to do. And so you couple that with the fact that it's an iconic Australian animal and people view it as helpless and in need of our protection, and all of a sudden you're starting to understand why people think, it's not okay to hunt that. Now, if a wolf comes at you and it's snarling and it's got blood in its teeth, people are like, hey, go shoot that thing before it kills you. But if a kangaroo is just sitting there in a field grazing on grass, somehow people think that's not okay to hunt, even though the resource that is meat and the hide is exactly the same. So another reason why I think people think it's not okay to hunt kangaroos is something that appeals to our paternal and maternal nature as human beings. When we look at the kangaroo, and a female kangaroo will carry a joey, that is a baby kangaroo, in its pouch for up to 18 months. So it's quite a nurturing animal, and it keeps that joey and it protects it and it feeds it inside the pouch, feeds it milk. And the idea that you would kill something that is that kind, we put human values and terminologies and philosophies into an animal, we kind of bake it in. But we think that an animal that kind and nurturing shouldn't be killed because it's so loving that it cares for its young for 18 months. And I'm not criticizing that. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that's a wonderful thing. I don't think that's a reason not to hunt it. Now, what makes this kind of a bit uglier is the fact that when culling of kangaroos is permitted, and it is permitted in parts of Australia, you can go out there and get a permit to cull kangaroos, but that's not the same as hunting kangaroos, mind you. That when you shoot a female kangaroo that has a joey, the law requires you to kill that joey or encourages you to kill that joey, and that can be a grisly job. Now, the reason why that happens is because a joey by itself without its mother is defenseless, and if you leave the joey by itself, you're leaving it exposed to the elements, to potential prey. It's just not a kind way for that joey to die, because it will die. So the government says, well, instead of it dying by the elements, dying in a gruesome, terrible way, you should put it out of its misery straight away. Now, you couple that with the fact that the parent is so maternal, and you can see again why some people go, well, that's not a good reason to hunt kangaroos. If you have to kill a female kangaroo, then have to kill its joey, a defenseless joey, which isn't fun, mind you. I've done it before. It's not fun, but it is a humane way to deal with it. You can understand why people don't like it. Now, the last reason I think that we're not legally allowed to hunt kangaroos, it's more of a skeptical thought. It's not truth. It's just a theory that I have. And it's not a conspiracy theory, but hey, it's a theory. I think the Australian government is invested in the economy of kangaroos. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you can get a license to harvest kangaroos, their meat, as well as their fur, and then their fur is sold overseas to companies like Nike to make shoes, to make bags, and make all sorts of clothing and animal products out of it. And there is quite a large industry around that. And so it's okay for our government to license people to go out there and kill these animals for the resources to sell outside of Australia and inside of Australia, mind you, but primarily outside of Australia because it is iconic, it is Australian, there is money there. But it's not okay for hunters to do that, because essentially if the government opens up the doors for hunters to go out there and to harvest kangaroos for themselves, for their families, for the meat, for the resource, they're essentially dipping into the pocket and taking away money that they could earn, essentially putting it out there into the global economy and the market. So I wonder if the government is putting these laws in place to prevent essentially damaging that economy. So what are the good reasons to change this law and allow Australian hunters to go out there, kill, hunt and harvest kangaroos? Well, firstly, kangaroo meat is fantastic. It's nutritious. It's a great resource that we have. There are millions and millions of kangaroos out there in Australia, something between like 30 to 60 million kangaroos. And to not allow hunters to access that resource seems crazy. Like, I always say to my wife that I would be a much better hunter if we were allowed to hunt kangaroos, because I see them all the time. I mean, it depends on obviously where you live, but where I live, I can walk out my front door, I can walk into the closest reserve, which is a couple hundred meters away, and I will see 60, 70 kangaroos easily. And if I wanted to hunt them, I could take my pick of any of those kangaroos. I could easily harvest it. Deer, on the other hand, I have to travel quite a ways to get deer, and there's no guarantee that I do get one. And the size of a kangaroo and the amount that you get, the efficiency in that hunting, is something that I think should be available to hunters to go and feed their families. And I'm not talking about hunters just going out there and killing for fun. You might say there's an argument for that, for the sport of it. Personally, I hunt for the resource, I hunt for the experience, and whatever I shoot and kill, I eat. So I think that we're missing out on that beautiful resource, and also the resource that is the furs, to go and make rugs, to make clothing out of that amazing kangaroo fur, which is beautiful, which is soft and has a really nice texture to it. Now, the other reason to open things up and allow Australian hunters to kill and harvest kangaroos is to protect our farming industry. Kangaroos absolutely smash crops and fields. They do so much more damage and eat so much more resources than sheep. So we need to protect our farmers and protect their livelihoods. Now, I do understand that farmers have access to permits where they can go and get culling licenses to go and kill a whole bunch of kangaroos and protect their assets. But personally, I think that's a real waste of kangaroos and a real waste of the resource, when you can just allow hunters onto your property to kill and harvest those kangaroos for you, do more damage, be more active, and then they can take the resource and feed their families. So I think there's something to be said about allowing hunters to kill for that reason. So here's a final thing to think about before the end of the video, some food for thought for you to chew on, maybe something for you to engage with in the comments section below. In 2018, AAMI, which is an Australian insurance agency, recorded over 8,000 deaths of kangaroos from road incidents. That is, people who crash into a kangaroo and then they fill out an insurance claim. Now, that's one insurance agency in Australia. Let's extrapolate and expand that number to all of the insurance agencies that have recorded all of the deaths of kangaroos by road incident. That's quite a lot of kangaroos that die, I would argue, needlessly every year. Maybe you agree as well. Now, the issue is when someone crashes into a kangaroo, and most of the time it is a fatality for the kangaroo, very rarely do they survive. Kangaroo dies, person feels a little bit bad, a little bit guilty. Now, if they hit a horse, would they feel worse because it's not an Australian animal? I don't know. If they hit, let's say a deer, would they feel worse? Or better? I don't know. You can think about that yourself. But the fact is, they care generally more about their car and the damage that they've done to their car. I mean, they're not going out after they kill a kangaroo and crusading about the rights of kangaroos on our roads, are they? No. They're spending the time to fill out an insurance claim. Now, the issue is that you can feel bad about that, but at the end of the day, people value their cars and the use of transportation and the use of our road services more than they value kangaroos. That's the ugly truth. Because at the end of the day, if you value kangaroos more than you value transportation and more than you value your car, then you wouldn't be using our roads. You wouldn't be driving through the bush, and you wouldn't be driving a car in general, because you wouldn't want to risk the death of a kangaroo. But we do it anyway, which tells me that most people value things like transportation more more than they value kangaroos, which is something crazy and stupid because when you look at the hunter, they value kangaroos quite a bit. In fact, they value them so much that they're willing to go out there, spend the time, learn about them, learn about their habits, learn about their behavior, enjoy them, enjoy their presence, and enjoy harvesting them and feeding their families. So it's just something interesting to think about. Hopefully you have some thoughts on this topic. Again, I encourage you, be kind, be genuine, be authentic, be respectful of each other in the comments section below, and hopefully we can discuss this a little further and gain some insight and wisdom. See ya.
Wait, before you go and watch another video, make sure you go check out the website that I made, huntingtrips.com.au. If you're looking for an Australian guided hunt or hunting course or safari or property to hunt on, it's the best place to find it. It's a great way to support me and a great way to find an amazing hunting experience.